रेणुका।
हरे कृष्ण माताजी.
हरे कृष्णा पिताजी. बेटी जी. बेटी అంటే కోపం వస్తుందా నీకు?
You call me a friend.
అయ్యో రామా, ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఏం చేస్తారా?
I am your friend.
ఓకే ఫ్రెండ్ జీ.
Shri Guru Shri Jutta Pada Kamala Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Gurunatandita Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadam Parishada Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Bhagava Sahagana Lalita Vishaka Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Paramiti Namo Shrupadaya Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desacharine Gauravani Pracharine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajya Acharya Ashtotara Satarshishim of the Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Naam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vashali Gopa Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shamaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Prem Anande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Hari Hari. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Chari Relation of the first translation. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Prahlad Lad Daine. Hiranyakashipur Bhakshaha.
Hiranyakashipur Bhakshaha.
Shilatanka Nakalai.
Shilatanka Nakalai.
Ito Nrisingha Parato Nrisingho.
Ito Nishingha Parato Nishingho.
Jato Dyato Dyamitato Nrisingha.
Yato Yato Yamitato Nishingha.
Bodhi Nrisingho Hridaye Nrisingho.
Mahir Nishingho Hridaye Nishingho.
Nrisinghamading Sharanam Prapadye.
Nrsimhamading Sharanam Prapadye.
Nrisinghamading Sharanam Prapadye.
Nrsimhamading Sharanam Prapadye.
Avakarapam Harinakam Adbhuta Sringa Lalita Hiranya Kashipu Tanu Bringam Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Lalita Hiranya Kashipu Ringam Keshavadita Nada Harirupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Nrisingha Bhagavan ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Welcome, devotees. Thank you for joining us. Those that are with us on both our Zoom channel as well as our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon for our Sunday Feast program. We're expected to get a lot of snow, but it wasn't as much as we thought it was. So we want to let you know that the temple is open and will be open for darshan this evening, starting at 6 o'clock, as well as for prasadam pickup if you've RSVP'd, as well as the Gitanagari milk for those that have been purchasing the milk that is also available. So the temple is open. We do have space here at the in the parking lot. Somewhat limited. The whole parking lot isn't plowed, but enough for people to come comfortably. Before we begin our Bhagavad Gita presentation for tonight, we'll take you for a quick darshan of Srila Prabhupada and the deities. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Parama Karuna Shishi Gaur Nitai ki. Shri Baladeva ki, Shrimati Subhadra Maharani ki, Shri Jagannatha Swami ki. Their most beautiful lordships, Shri Shri Radha Sharat Bihari ki. So today is Ekadasi. Today we fast from beans and grains. Also, if you notice the deities on Ekadasi, they wear a particular color. It's usually red or pink with silver. So today they have on their red and silver outfit. So once a year, there is an event that's held called the Super Bowl. It's usually one of the least attended days at the Sunday feast because people like to go home and watch the Super Bowl. So we coined this day the Hari Bowl. The devotees get together and we chant the Lord's names and glorify him. So tonight for our Hari Bowl presentation of the Bhagavad Gita, we have His Grace Acharya Prabhu. Acharya Prabhu is a disciple of His Holiness Satsrup Maharaj. He and his wife Sudevi, Mother Sudevi, they live in near the temple area. Regularly give classes, and we're very happy to have him with us tonight. We're doing a progression of the Bhagavad Gita. We have a lot of Bhagavad Gita going on. We have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We do the reading, and then we also have these presentations on the second chapter that we've begun. And last week we learned about the nature of the soul, and tonight we're going to hear about the nature of devotional service by Acharya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
You're not just going to. Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Dana Brajadana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Dana Brajadana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Puravijakacharya Stotra Saptashishi Mad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Puravijakacharya Stotra Saptashishi Mad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sekho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga.
We're going to swing it around 90
Okay.
degrees, okay? Just so it's easier for them to.
I should swing myself? Or
Yeah.
you're putting just the camera.
This and you too,
Okay.
just so
Yep.
people are watching.
Good?
Yeah. I think that's good.
Okay. I'm taking my mask off now.
Yeah.
Because my glasses are fogging up. Sarvo Panishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gitam Ritam Mahat. This Bhagavad Gita, the essence of all the Upanishads, is just like a cow. Lord Krishna, who is famous as a cowherd boy, is milking this cow. Arjuna is just like a calf, and learned scholars and pure devotees are meant to drink the nectarian milk of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I'm excited, my first time in the temple in ages, to see the beautiful deities and some of the beautiful devotees. It's very nice. And someday we could all get back together again, I'm hoping, not before too long. So today we'll be looking at chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, or Sankhya Yoga, text 38 through 40. I'll start by reading 38. Sukha duke samakritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yudaya yujasva naivam papam avapsyasi. Sukha, happiness, duke, and distress. Same, actually same means in equanimity. It's spelled the same as the English word same, so easy to remember. Kritva, doing so. Labha, alabho, both profit and loss. Jaya, ajayo, both victory and defeat. Tata, thereafter. Yudhaya, for the sake of fighting. Yujyasva, engage, fight. Na, never. Evam, in this way. Papam, sinful reaction. Avapsyasi, you will gain. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. And by so doing, you shall never incur sin. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. He, Krishna. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or loss, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. There is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction, good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Devarshi bhutapta nrinam patrinam nakinkaro nayam rinicharajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam paririthyakartam. Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna, Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not to demigods, not the sages, nor the people in general, nor kinsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, Chapter 5, Text 41. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse, and the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses. And I'm going to read text 39, just the translation, or the Sanskrit and the translation. Esha te bihita sankye buddhir yoga tvimam shrinu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. And 240 we'll get to a little bit later. So, in Vedic culture, in Vedic philosophy, in all the scriptures and all the acharyas, there's a lot of classification going on. Everything is broken down into categories and subcategories for the sake of analysis. And even in ordinary circumstances, we understand things by dissecting them, by dividing them and looking at the parts. So the acharyas do that, and Prabhupada does that. And we have 9 types of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. We have 9 steps from Shraddha to Prem, 3 types of devotee. This number of these things or those things, and so many categories, all divided into numbers and things like that. So this is an important part of understanding, but it's also, how should I say, we shouldn't get overdone with just ordinary analysis, dry analysis. There's one instance from way back in the early days of ISKCON, Satsvarup Maharaj. He was, I don't know if he was Satsvarup or maybe even, I think he was still Steve at the time. And he was always taking notes at Srila Prabhupada's morning lectures, taking copious notes to learn everything. And especially then, everything was so new. So Prabhupada, and you could hear some of these lectures, Prabhupada was speaking from Chaitanya Charitamrita about, I'm not sure, is it the teachings of Sanatana Goswami when all the different types of avatars are being delineated. And Prabhupada's talking about the different Vishnus. And we've heard this before, that Vishnu is standing with his forearms 2 up and 2 down. And he described, in this Vishnu has the Shankha, Chakra, Padma, Gada, like this. And this Vishnu has the conch shell and the club and the lotus flower and the chakra in a different order, and this one has it in another order. And Satsarup Maharaj asked, should I write this down? Maharaj said, no, you don't need to. You don't need to write all this down, all these details. And then a day or two later, Prabhupada was discussing the different kinds of avatars, that there's Purusha avatars and Leela avatars and Yuga avatars. And he said to Satsarup Maharaj, this you should write down. So there's all these categories, and we learn a lot of them, and it's an important part of our understanding in devotional service. But these are categories for understanding, just like there's 9 types of devotional service. So right now I'm reading from Bhagavad Gita and giving a class. So I'm reading from Bhagavad Gita, that means I'm hearing, that's Shravanam, but I'm also reading it out loud, so it's also Kirtanam, and Tenaham Istasyam. If I'm studying Bhagavad Gita, I'm worshiping Krishna with my intelligence. So there's all sorts of overlap with these different categories. They're categories for understanding, but in real life, there's some overlap. There's some mixing and matching of them, or the different stages of devotional service, Ado Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha. So when we Ado Shraddha, first we get a little bit of faith in devotional service, and then we start associating with devotees, but that doesn't mean that the development of faith has ended. Or we get to the stage of Anartha Nivritti, when we start getting rid of all our bad qualities and unwanted bad habits. But even after that, when we get to the stage of Nishta, and what's after Nishta? Ruchi, yes, thank you. Taste and attachment. And actually, Anartha Nivritti, getting rid of anarthas, continues all the way through, all the way up to the stage of Bhava Bhakti, which is almost the very top. And the example is sometimes given of Bharat Maharaj, who had attained Bhava Bhakti, but he still had some anarthas he had to work out and give up. So this is how, so these different categories are extremely important for understanding and analyzing devotional service. But we also have to appreciate that there are occasional flexibility and overlap and all of this. So, let's see. So we're analyzing this second chapter now. And this verse, today's verse 28 and 29 is important because it's a transition from one category of behavior to another. Again, as it says in text 29, Krishna says, thus far I've described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. So this is this is the transition that's going on here. Let's look back a little bit. Krishna is very clever. So when Krishna does something, he's accomplishing many purposes. Chataro Yugapad Buri Samadhana Kriduchite, that Krishna is the most clever person. And clever, according to Srila Rupa Goswami, means he accomplishes many things at one time. So he's speaking Bhagavad Gita to enlighten Arjuna, to enlighten us, and also just to make the battle happen, to make the fight happen. So Krishna starts off to Arjuna to make the fight happen. He gives a combination of pep talk and insulting him to make the fighting happen. He says, go ahead and fight, you're a Kshatriya, and if you fight, you'll get the kingdom and your family will be on top and it's all awesome. And he tries to scare him with negatives, but if you don't, then and then he gives the negative one, don't be weak-minded, don't be a coward. What's that? Klaibya masma gama parta. How has this weakness, this impotence come upon you? So this word klaibyam is interesting. Klaibyam means impotence. It comes from the Sanskrit word kliba, which literally means a eunuch. So we could understand Krishna saying this to Arjuna is actually very insulting. He's comparing him to an impotent person, a eunuch. And we know Arjuna, he spent some time as a eunuch in the court of King Virat. So that must have really smarted for Arjuna hearing that from Krishna. So with this, rah, rah, go, you fight, you'll win the kingdom, even if you're killed, you'll go to heaven, it's all good. And if you don't, then you're like a impotent person, a eunuch, a coward, everyone will speak badly of you. So these are all the material reasons for Arjuna to fight that Krishna gave. And then he does that up through like text 36 or 37. He stresses like that. In the middle of that, he also gives a little digression. You're not this body, you're spirit soul. The soul is eternal, to prepare the way for the teachings he's giving next. And then in today's verse, he's elevating the discussion and elevating Arjuna from the position of karma, do something because it'll give you a good result or because you'll avoid a bad result. Instead of that being a reason, now he gives the reason of nishkama karma yoga, that you do your duty for the sake of Krishna, for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you don't concern yourself, or you don't personally do it for the enjoyment or the suffering of the consequences. You do it for Krishna, not for yourself. So this is the big progression in today's verse, from just being a karmi and doing whatever you do to get something good or to avoid something bad, and doing something because Krishna wants you to. So this is an important categorical distinction. The animals act with a very minimal amount of will and a very minimal amount of choice. Animals, by their nature, are forced to act in certain ways. When one gets to the human platform, they can start making choices in how they act. And most humans, the vast majority of humans, act in very sinful ways, but using the same mentality that Krishna is using on Arjuna, that I'm acting in this way because I think it'll give me some pleasure, or I'm acting in this way because I think it will help me avoid some suffering. But this is not that different from the animal. The animals although they have little free will, but they're acting for pleasure and to avoid pain. Even the bacteria or the little paramecium swimming around in the water will swim towards food and swim away from an attacker or swim away from some toxic substance. So this attraction to pleasure and avoidance of pain, it's the same mentality through the animals and up to the materialistic humans. And then when a human gets a little bit more advanced, he's still motivated for his own pleasure, but he at least understands that his own pleasure will come from acting piously. Then instead of being an animal, or instead of being a vikarmi, someone who works against religious principles and gets sinful reactions, he becomes a karmi. He works in a pious way in order to get a pious result, a good result. As Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you fight, you'll get the kingdom, or you fight and get killed, you'll go to heaven. Either way, good result. But now he's progressing. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat. This is sukha dukkha, happiness and distress. Same, you consider them the same. Labha, alabha, getting what you want or not getting what you want, you consider them the same. Jaya, ajaya, victory or defeat, you consider them the same, but you do your duty because I, Krishna, am telling you to do it. This progression is the first level or the first rung of what Srila Prabhupada calls the yoga ladder. So to describe this yoga ladder a little bit, I have a lecture segment from Prabhupada. I don't know how well this is going to come out. Let me know if everyone can actually hear what's being said. Oops.
Yoga ladder. Yoga ladder, it has been compared with a ladder, just like steps. In a big skyscraper house, there are steps. So every step is a progress. That's a fact. So the whole step ladder may be called the yoga system. But one may be on the 5th step, another may be on the 50th step, another may be on the 500th step, and another may be on the top of the house. So although the whole ladder is called yoga system or staircase, but one who is on the 5th step, he cannot be equal with the person who is on the 50th step. Or one who is on the 50th step, he cannot be compared with the man who is on the 500th step. Similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, you will find Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. It is stated with the name Yoga because the whole ladder is connected with the topmost floor. So every system is connected with God, Krishna. But that does not mean every man is on the topmost floor. One who is on the topmost floor is to be understood in Krishna consciousness. Others, they are just like 5th or 50th or 500 legs. The whole thing is called ladder.
So I'm hopeful, but I don't know how clear that was to everyone out there in Zoom land listening. Prabhupada explaining the yoga ladder, that there's many different kinds of yoga, beginning from this nishkama karma yoga that is being explained today in dhyana yoga and ashtanga yoga, and the topmost is bhakti yoga. The whole ladder is the process of yoga, but not every rung of the ladder is the same. So this is the idea of the yoga ladder. Here's one more. I'll read this instead of playing it. This is another explanation given by Srila Prabhupada. He says, the fruitive workers cannot be counted among the yogis. The actual yogis are the karma yogis, the jnana yogis, the ashtanga yogis, and the bhakti yogis. So first point, fruitive workers are not counted among the yogis. Like I said, people who are, even if they're pious, even if they're seemingly religious, but they're still working for their own benefit through their religiosity. This is not yoga. These are still fruitive workers. The actual yogis, karma yogis, jnana yogis, ashtanga yogis, and bhakti yogis. Factually, they are the same, although named differently. The yogic process is like a ladder one ascends gradually toward the final goal of the absolute truth. Nishkama karma, or renunciation of the fruits of one's labor, is the first step on this ladder. When knowledge and austerity are added to it, it becomes jnana yoga, the second step in this ladder. And when meditation on the Supreme is added to jnana yoga, the third step is reached, namely ashtanga yoga. Finally, when loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord is practiced along with ashtanga yoga, it is transformed into bhakti yoga. The entire successive process is yoga. For an exact and clear delineation of the subject of yoga, all four steps need to be explained separately. So like I said earlier, there's a lot of categorization in Vedic philosophy. And as Prabhupada says, for an exact and clear delineation of the subject of yoga, all four steps need to be explained separately. So that's true, but the whole ladder is also yoga. And for those of us in ISKCON following Srila Prabhupada's example, all of these rungs are actually bhakti yoga, different aspects of bhakti yoga. Even the beginning person who is still maybe a little fruitive and they're trying to renounce the results of their activities, if they're following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, that's also bhakti yoga. Prabhupada goes on, those who cannot reach the top for some reason and get stuck at any one of the four stages acquire the designation of that particular stage. Thus, there are karma yogis, jnana yogis, ashtanga yogis, and bhakti yogis. Lord Krishna instructs Arjuna that one who renders loving devotional service to him, the Supreme Lord, is the highest among all yogis, and that Arjuna should thus strive to become such a bhakti yogi. So the highest of all is bhakti yoga amongst all the different categories of yoga. But as I said, for the devotee in ISKCON following Srila Prabhupada and the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, it's all bhakti yoga. Actually, the different acharyas have analyzed differently. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti in his Bhagavad Gita commentary, he distinguishes karma yoga is this, and jnana yoga is this, and dhyana yoga is this, and bhakti yoga is here. But Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan in his commentary explains that it's all bhakti yoga because it's all for Krishna. Prabhupada, as usual, as he often does, he synthesizes these views for our understanding. As long as we understand, even if we're at an early stage, and by some calculation, you might say, oh, this person doesn't have devotion. He's doing nishkama karma yoga. But if we understand the principle that Prabhupada taught us, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarva loka mahesharam suridam sarva bhutanam gatramam shantam richati, then that's devotional service, if you understand that principle. And that's why Prabhupada teaches us that everything we do is backed up by these spiritual principles. And Prabhupada does this a lot. He'll take very technical points or esoteric points, and he'll explain them in very practical ways that are applicable to us as aspiring devotees in ISKCON. Let's see. Just like one example I could think of off the top of my head, in Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada is explaining the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti, devotional service done according to the rules and regulations, and Raganuga Bhakti. And he explains it in a simple, down-to-earth way. And he says, in the beginning, the rule is you get up early, you go to Mangalarti, you worship the deity, you do like this. And in the beginning, you don't want it, you may not be inspired to do it, but you do it because it's rules and regulations. And he said, but then after a little while, you want to go to the temple and you want to decorate the deity in different ways. This is Raganuga Bhakti. Now, technically, in one sense, that may not be, or it's not the full definition of what Raganuga Bhakti is, but it's an aspect of Raganuga Bhakti that you want to go do it. You're inspired to go do it, not just following the rules. So here Prabhupada's explaining it in a way that we can all appreciate, in a way that we can understand, and in a way that actually opens the door to these higher stages of devotion for those of us who are maybe not on a very high level. So we may not be pure bhakti yogis, but if we understand the principle that everything is for Krishna, then whatever we do becomes bhakti yoga, wherever we may be on this yoga ladder. And Prabhupada explains earlier, he was distinguishing the different kind of yogas. Here in another discussion, he's saying it's all bhakti yoga. He says the culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are but means to come to the point of bhakti and bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions towards the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. And he again explains how it progresses up through karma yoga, jnana yoga, up to bhakti yoga. Factually, bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal, but to analyze bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. So again, he's making that point. We understand the categories, but we also understand that it's all subsumed under the umbrella of bhakti yoga. So because we're devotees or aspiring devotees, we know this bhakti yoga is the topmost yoga. And this is our understanding of the message of Bhagavad Gita. And this is our understanding of the practices in our life, that it's all bhakti yoga. Everything we should do should be under this category of bhakti yoga. So this is some idea of the yoga ladder. From the very first step on the ladder, it's the yoga ladder. Yoga ultimately means bhakti. So unless we're getting stuck on a rung, we could understand that we're progressing in bhakti. Because bhakti is the goal of everything we do. What's that? Prema Pamarta Mahan, the greatest wealth, the greatest goal is bhakti, attaining love for Krishna. And not only the goal, but it's our existence, it's our nature, it's our dharma. Jivar Swarupai Krishna Nityadas, Krishna Tatashta Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. Because of who we are, because of what we are as spirit souls with Krishna, which Krishna took an interlude in his discussion with Arjuna to explain, because we're spirit souls, we have this nature of being tatashta, that we're spiritual, but we're very small. We're part and parcel of Krishna. We're simultaneously one with and different from Krishna, Beda Bed Prakash. And because of that, Jiver Swarupai, Krishna Nityadas, our constitutional position is being the servant of Krishna. So it's our nature, and it already exists within us, although it may not be awakened, it may be awakened to a lesser degree or a greater degree, but because it's our nature, it's already within us. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhya Kabunoi, Shravana Dashudi Chitti Korye Udoi. That Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem, love for Krishna, is already existing eternally within our hearts, but by the practice of devotional service, beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam and all of the processes of devotional service and all the directions and instructions given by Srila Prabhupada, the covering of our material consciousness is removed, and the innate Krishna consciousness, love of Krishna, can awaken and come out. So it's all bhakti. And when Prabhupada is explaining Bhagavad Gita, he's always reminding us that it's all bhakti. Even when he's discussing things that are Krishna is including under the category of karma yoga. Just like Krishna explains to Arjuna, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, Brahmaivatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. This is an explanation of the process of yajna, that when you do a sacrifice, the sacrifice is Brahman or spirit. The ghee you're pouring on the fire is spirit. The fire itself is spirit. The offering is spirit. The recipient of the offering is spirit. And in this kind of Brahma Karma Samadhina, in this kind of mentality, understanding this, then all of your activities become spiritual. But Prabhupada explains it for us, that a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom. He's not explaining some vague spirit or some what to speak of some offensive, impersonal spiritual idea. But a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. Or that great verse about karma yoga, that yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tararta karma konteya mukta sangha samatra. The word karma is in it 4 times. And it's about karma yoga, but Prabhupada explains work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in the material world. Perform your prescribed duties for Krishna's satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. This is not karma yoga, this is actually bhakti yoga, that you're working for Krishna. When Prabhupada devoted his entire life and every drop of his energy for working for Krishna, he was working for Krishna and he was renouncing his own health and his own wealth and his own material happiness and distress. He was completely unconcerned with that, working for Krishna. In one sense, you could say, oh, that's Nishkama Karma Yoga. But no, actually, ultimately, that's Srila Prabhupada's pure devotion. Or when he was constructing his Bhaktivedanta purports, poring over the purports of the acharyas and analyzing them so deeply. Prabhupada said when we study the scriptures, we should study it threadbare, meaning completely taking it apart and getting into it. And he was studying and interpreting and using logic and reason and all these things. And you could say, oh, well, that's Jnana Yoga. But no, it's not. It's Srila Prabhupada's pure bhakti. So all of these things, when done properly, put us automatically on the top rung of the yoga ladder. Prabhupada also explains this. Going from the ladder analogy, he extends that analogy even further. He says, if one practices Jnana Yoga and he thinks that he has attained the ultimate, he is mistaken. He has to make further progress. If we are on a staircase and have to reach the top floor, which is the 100th floor, we are mistaken if we think we have arrived when we are on the 30th floor. As stated before, the whole yoga system may be likened to a staircase, connecting or linking us to God. But why walk up all these steps? If we have a chance to take an elevator, by means of an elevator, we can reach the top in a matter of seconds. Bhakti yoga is this elevator, the direct process by which we can reach the top in a matter of seconds. We can go step by step, following all the other yoga systems, or we can go directly. So in this age of Kali Yuga, people have short lifespans and are always disturbed and anxious. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by his causeless mercy, has given us the elevator by which we can come immediately to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. That direct means is the chanting of Hare Krishna. So this yoga ladder is there and it's real. But when we follow devotional service, when we practice yoga in the way that Srila Prabhupada gave us, it immediately, even the first day in the temple or the first day exposure to devotional service, it can immediately take us to the level of practice, at least practicing actual bhakti yoga, and not have to spend 50 lifetimes as a karma yogi and 80 lifetimes as a ashtanga yogi, and then become a jnana yogi and go to the Brahma Jyoti and spend a few gazillion years there. And no, all circumvented. That's the elevator, express elevator to Krishna, is devotional service, especially devotional service as taught in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, and even more especially devotional service as given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So reiterating, we understand and we study because we need to understand and want to understand all these things about devotional service. We understand what is a karmi, what is a karma yogi, jnana, dhyana, all these different things. But we're interested in becoming pure devotees. By pure devotees, I'm not even necessarily saying a devotee who is completely 100% pure in every way, but at least we can become pure devotees in the sense that we're only interested in devotional service and not interested in other kinds of yoga. What's that? Blanking out. 1111 from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the giving up the definition of pure devotional service. So, no, the other one. It's Krishna.
Anyan Vilasita Sunyam Jnana.
Say that again, Haryashva.
Anyan Vilas.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Haryashva Prabhu.
Jnana Comedy.
Out there. Anya Bilashita Shanyam Jnana Karmadya Navritam Anu Kolena Krishna Anu Shilanam Bhakta Uttamam. This is pure devotional service. The definition here is not a definition that you or me or anyone is 100% pure in every way, but they're pure in the sense that their only concern is devotional service. They've given up all other desires, anyabilashi ashanyam, they've given up karma, they've given up jnana. So this is pure. This is the pure devotional service we're interested in. And to finish up, I'm going to share a very beautiful analogy given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He explains in his commentary on Bhagavad Gita 1863. In 1863, Krishna says, I've explained to you knowledge, and confidential knowledge, and even more confidential knowledge. Now, yetechasi tatakaru, you do what you think is good. You do according to your desire. So in that commentary there, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the Bhagavad Gita is the greatest treasure. And in fact, the entire Bhagavad Gita itself is like a big treasure chest. Just like you could imagine from pirate stories. You dig a buried
Are we here? Oh my God, that was such a good class.
I think there are some technical glitches on his side, on the Prabhuji's side.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a good class.
Yes, it is.
I love Acharya's work. It's
Okay,
Here we go.
welcome back, everybody. We had a computer glitch here that the Zoom link went out, and now we're doing it from devotee's phone. I hope you could still hear me. We have just a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up. Did everyone hear about Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti's analogy of the treasure chest?
We just
Yes.
started that. We just started it.
So
I
the
think
bottom
if
of
you
the
could hit
chest.
it again, that would be great.
The bottom of the treasure chest is the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which mainly deals with karma yoga. The lid of the treasure chest is likened to the last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which mainly deals with jnana yoga. And the middle 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which mostly deal with bhakti yoga, are the treasure within the chest. And inscribed on the lid of the chest is the directions for opening that chest to access the treasure inside. And those directions are Bhagavad Gita 18, 65, and 66. Manmana bhavamad bhakto, madhyiji mam namaskuru, bhave vaishasi satyam te, pratijane priyosime, and sarvadam yaja mame kam sharanam raja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha ishami mashucha. So this is how we access the treasure of devotional service in Bhagavad Gita. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise this because you are my very dear friend. And sarva dharman prityaja mame kam sharanam. These 2 verses are very interesting because they're actually similar to this concept of nishkama karma yoga, that you have some duty to do. You always think of Krishna. You become Krishna's devotee. You worship him. You offer your obeisances to him. and you're detached. Detached from what? Sarvadharman prityaja. You're giving up all these different other lesser dharmas and all these lesser yogas, and you're renouncing all of that. And the result is you don't worry. You'll come to Krishna from that, and you don't worry, you don't fear. Krishna says, always think of me. This is dhyana yoga. He says, worship me and offer your obeisance. This is karma yoga. And he says, you are my very dear friend. This is pure bhakti. So he's saying, put aside everything except pure bhakti. And it's also very nice at the end of that verse. He says, Ma sucha, you don't worry. If you do this, you don't have to worry. There'll be no sinful reaction. There'll be no difficulty. There'll be no problems, which brings us back to Bhagavad Gita, text 240, which we'll finish with now. 240. Nahabi kramo nasosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mato bayat. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So here Krishna is giving the same assurance that he's giving to Arjuna at the very end of Bhagavad Gita, Masucha. He says, you take in this endeavor. So this endeavor, Krishna is specifically talking about this Nishkama Karma Yoga, which is the very beginning of the yoga ladder, but which we also know is part of Bhakti Yoga. So he says in this endeavor, even at the beginning of the process of Bhakti Yoga, a little endeavor, a little advancement can save you from the greatest type of fear, which is, of course, being stuck in the cycle of repeated birth and death in this material world. So the same message from beginning to end in Bhagavad Gita is being made there, that you devote yourself to trying to advance in yoga, specifically trying to advance in Bhakti Yoga and Krishna consciousness. A little advancement will save you so much trouble. So just imagine if you actually approach perfection, how much you could be spared, how much trouble you can be spared. Nahabi kramo nasosti. Abhikram means an approaching step or a first step or a beginning step. So even in a beginning step in this process of devotional service gives so much benefit. And even if you advance just a little bit, this advancement is called swalpa. Alpa means small, and su-alpa means very, very small. So even just a microscopic drop of advancement gives so much benefit, saves us so much fear. And one final story, how it can save us. Prabhupada told a story once, Hare Krishna, that Prabhupada was speaking, and he said, if there is some flower, and that flower is being offered to Krishna's lotus feet, and if on that flower there's one little ant crawling on that flower, and if that flower is offered at Krishna's lotus feet, and that ant crawls up and kisses Krishna's lotus foot, that ant is as good as the pujari. So just a little advancement, a little touch, if we can approach Krishna, if we could touch Krishna in some way. Earlier, Prabhupada stressed the holy name. If we could touch Krishna through his holy name, if we could touch him through his scripture, through associating with and serving his devotees, and all the processes of devotional service we have, then this is our perfection. This is the perfection of yoga. Prabhupada had that book. First book I ever got, like 40 something years ago, The Perfection of Yoga. This is the perfection of yoga. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We can have some discussion and questions now. Thank you. Is the Zoom link still good? People still hearing?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes, Prabhu.
How about the live audience first? Any discussion?
I don't even hear class without asking a question. I shouldn't be talking.
In the first way, it says that going down to the animal life is the most biggest fear. He was a devotee, and then he became a deer.
Right.
special case. We're never, it just shows that we have, first of all, it shows a few things, that we have to be very scared of an artist, in at an advanced stage. And we're usually not as advanced as we think we are anyway. But even at a genuinely advanced stage, there's chance of an arta.
Hare Krishna.
And generally, we are saved from falling down into lower species. But that was a very special case for a very special, unique Mahajan. So we'll cut him some slack for that. And we'll cut Krishna some slack for that, that he wasn't exaggerating when he says it saves us from the greatest type of fear. And also, even as a deer, he remembered his previous life, and he knew what was going on. So he understood what the lesson was. He understood what was going on. And it was, and he took it, and we can see it as a step in his perfection. So unique case. Anything else? Anyone else in the live audience? Anyone?
So in that case,
Speak loudly, please.
So in that case, he was saved from the most dangerous fear because saved because he remembered his devotional service. But for a normal person, going back down into the lower forms of life would be that most dangerous fear, not remembering Krishna.
Right. Wow, that's a really great point. That for Bharat, his greatest fear, it says, Trayate Mahatobai, I'd save you from the greatest fear. Bharat Maharaj's greatest fear wasn't taking birth as an animal. His greatest fear was forgetting Krishna. And that's what happened. He forgot Krishna by paying too much attention to the deer. So he was actually, by becoming a deer, he was delivered from the greatest fear. So that's a beautiful point. Very good point. Hare Krishna.
You're right. Maybe has a question.
Okay. Speaking or dictated? Okay, go ahead, Devi.
Hare Krishna. The analogy you were giving about the treasure in the chest, Srila
Yes.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur.
Yes.
When it got interrupted, I could not really follow. Could you please say that again, paraphrase it for me?
Yes. The Bhagavad Gita is compared to a treasure chest. And you know how a treasure chest, like a box, has a bottom half and a lid, right? So the bottom of the box, the bottom of the treasure chest is compared to the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which mainly, not exclusively, but mainly deal with karma yoga. The lid of the chest is compared to the final 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which mostly deal with jnana yoga. And the middle 6 chapters, which deal mostly with bhakti yoga, is compared to the actual treasure within the chest. And the inscription on the chest, which gives you directions how to unlock and open the chest, is Bhagavad Gita 8, chapter 18, text 65 and 66. Manmana and Sarvadam and Prityaja.
And where is that from?
That's from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti's Bhagavad Gita commentary on 1863.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is a treasure. We don't neglect the bottom 6 chapters, the first 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters, because as I said several times and in several ways, it's all bhakti.
Yes.
But this is the way it's described. And also, if you have a treasure, you want to keep that treasure nicely. If you have a valuable treasure, you don't leave it on the floor. You also put it in a beautiful and secure chest. So it's all, the entire Bhagavad Gita is valuable, but we also know that our focus, excuse me, that our focus is ultimately on bhakti. Any other question or comment from the Zoom world?
I just love the class.
Very kind.
I love the class, from beginning to end, you're one of my favorites. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, I have a question, Prabhuji.
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you for the Sunday Feast lecture. And today's topic was all the 9 different types of devotion. Am I right?
Technically, the topic was, what is it? The nature of devotional service.
Okay. Okay, nature of devotional service, and
I'm not,
you.
I can't definitely confirm that I stuck to that topic exactly 100%, but hopefully I gave at least some idea of the nature of devotional service.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think you were touching this topic on yoga. So there are so many yogas in the marketplace, like Kundalini Yoga, Hatha Yoga, BKS, Iyengar Yoga, Heart Yoga, right outside my apartment. So do all these kinds of different yogas, are they within the scope of Krishna consciousness?
I don't want to overgeneralize, and I don't want to be overly harsh, and I don't want to be overly condemning of others and other processes, but no. Does that sound terrible?
No, I thought you would at least give some teeny mini bit of some kind of concession, because it is also yoga, right? They are also yoga.
Well, some of them are and some of them aren't. Like I said, I can't speak about every single group or every single person or every single thing. If there's actually some general yogic principles being taught, I suppose that might have some value. But without and Prabhupada has also explained this, that all of the yogas, if they don't have at least a little mixture of bhakti yoga in with them, then they're all useless. So I can't condemn everyone in the world, but I can say as a general principle that if there isn't at least some element of bhakti being added, then it's spiritually not very useful and is actually to some degree a misrepresentation of what yoga actually is. So if there are certain particular groups that you know about or are interested in, that could be discussed in another venue, maybe to have some particular value. But in general, for the actual spiritual goal of love of Krishna, they're not very valuable and not very useful, especially in Kali Yuga. Maybe in a previous age when you could meditate for 50,000 years, or you could do super excellent sacrifices, maybe then they had some value. But in this age, not so much value.
Okay, thank you.
And at the risk of being overly harsh, Hatha yoga in particular is really good stretching, but it doesn't have that much spiritual value. Now, devotees who use these things as a way in to preach to these communities, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing to do. But the yogas themselves, if they're devoid of Krishna consciousness, are not very valuable as a general principle.
Okay, got it. So I have one more question.
And if that's overly harsh, I'm very sorry. And
no.
Remember that I'm not speaking absolute truth. I'm giving my point of view. Someone may have a more nuanced view and a more accepting view, and that's also good. That's also acceptable.
Yeah, I've been to like 3-4 different kinds of yogas, and mostly they were stretching, and basically they were telling, have a steady mind. I mean, they were like talking some principles from the Bhagavad Gita too, like, some general principles, but they did not say Lord Krishna, but have a steady mind, like, watch your thoughts, be aware, like, some of this, the Gita fluff.
Yeah. So those things may have a little value here and there, some material value, but without Krishna added, not so much value. There's one, I wish I had it here, but there's one time Prabhupada was speaking. He says, oh, these yogis, I have seen these yogis meditating. They close their eyes and 1 minute later, is that clear? Did everyone hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, so in general, Prabhupada was not very enthusiastic about these things. Another time, Prabhupada was on a morning walk in, I think, Bombay, and they saw someone doing yoga exercise, the Hatha yoga exercises, doing the Sirshasan, standing on their head. And Prabhupada looked and he said, oh, this is very good for the health. But then the devotee says, so we should do? And Prabhupada said, not required. So anything else? Any other question or discussion?
I have one more question, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Service to humanity is service to God. So
Not necessarily true. That's a popular slogan in India. And I think, did that come from that from Vivekananda? Manava Seva, Manava
Madhava
Seva.
Seva, Manava Seva.
Yeah, that's not actually a fact. Service to humanity is good, but it should be done. For example, if there are people hungry, if there are people starving, just giving them food is not service to God. Giving them prasadam is service to God and service to humanity. Giving them knowledge is service to God and service to humanity. But just serving humanity itself, which I'm not saying don't do. If a person is suffering, it's natural that we're going to want to help them in some way, even if it's just some material way. If a beggar needs a meal, if a person is in some hardship, you want to help them. Even a simple thing, if someone's walking down the street and they drop their grocery bag, I'm going to stop and help them pick it up. This is not, devotional service. It's not anything special like that. It's just that a devotee is naturally a good and helpful person. But we should know that to really help humanity, the real help is devotional service. And that devotional service and service to people separate from devotional service is not necessarily spiritual. Is that all right?
yeah. So can we have like a service project with a Krishna consciousness element, and then would that be a service to God?
If you can combine it with Krishna consciousness, then that's excellent.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to hear.
Right. And I'm also saying that there is some scope for even quote unquote mundane service to humanity. Like I said, if someone's starving, if someone's sick, if someone's in distress, we want to help them. That's natural for not just a devotee, but any person. It's a natural reaction. We want to do that so we could help people. But whenever possible, we want to add Krishna consciousness. And that's when it actually has spiritual value.
Got it.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you, Prabhuji, for the.
Is there a time? Is it time to wrap up? Okay. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Everyone stay safe. Everyone take care of yourself. And keep on practicing Krishna consciousness. And I think Jonah Prabhu will have some quick announcements. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Prabhu.
I'm going to slide over.
Yes.
Or I can actually rotate this over. That's good. Hare Krishna, everyone. I want to thank Acharya Prabhu for that wonderful, informative lecture. Very, very thought-provoking. As you went through everything very succinctly. These are the type of classes we're trying to bring to you on Sundays. We have a schedule. We call these our Sunday feast presentations. Next week, we'll have another presentation, so please tune in for that. Also, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, if you're enjoying the Bhagavad Gita, please tune in from 5 o'clock to 5:30. We do a Bhagavad Gita reading. We call it our happy hour. After work, people like to unwind, relax, so you can get a cup of nectar of the Bhagavad Gita.
I've got to say, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm at work and I can't speak, but I always tune in while I'm at work. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Thank you. That's good. And I think a lot of people have been. We've gotten a really nice turnout for that. And actually tonight, we have a lot of people from that program actually tuned in tonight, I noticed. I think we had our biggest turnout these last 2 weeks for our Sunday program. So please keep spreading the word. The more people tune in, they listen, the more community we build around this process of hearing and chanting. We want to thank our Sunday feast sponsor for tonight. It is Shwashwati and Manish and Radhika. It is their son's Dhruva's birthday. So we want to offer our blessings and prayers to Dhruva on his birthday. Very happy occasion. So let us all chant the Maha Mantra for Dhruva and bless him for a happy year. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the temple is open tonight. We didn't get as much snow as we thought we were going to get. And the parking lot is pretty much clear. It'll be a little tight in here when people come, but if we're all conscientious, we can make it happen. Prasadam pickup is now available for those that have ordered it, as well as the milk from Gita Nagari that also arrived today. So temple darshan will be open until 7:15. Okay, again, we'd like to offer our gratitude to Acharya Prabhu for teaching us tonight. And we hope to see you guys, see everyone soon. Tomorrow night, Bhagavad Gita, as well as every morning, 7:50 to 8:30, we have Srimad Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.